Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Natalia Leigh. I'm an indie author and freelance editor, and today I am participating in a big collaboration that I'm pretty damn excited about. So I am participating in the Authortube Seminar Series. I think it was lovingly dubbed Wordstock. It was originally started by Robert over at Dtechtive. I will link him down below, as well as his kind of promo video for the Authortube Seminar Series. So what I will be talking about today is suspense. It is often confused with mystery or tension, but suspense is really within its own field. It is its own thing entirely, and we're going to kind of talk about that today. But of course, there are going to be a bunch of different people on Authortube who are talking about suspense today. So if my thoughts on it and if my tips don't really vibe with you and you feel like you want more information, by all means, check out the other people who are participating in this round of the Authortube Seminar Series. And going along with that, like I mentioned, suspense and tension can often get confused for one another. So there will be some people in the community talking about tension specifically, and those videos will go live on Saturday, April 18th. I'm not participating in that one. I am only giving you my tips on suspense today. But of course, if you are interested in hearing my take on tension, let me know in the comments down below. So if you are ready to learn a little bit about what suspense is and how to write it into your novel, keep on watching. Let's get started. Okay, so you guys know that I am an editor. I love words, I love definitions. So to start us off, I looked up the actual definition of suspense on Merriam-Webster. Mental uncertainty / like anxiety or pleasant excitement as to a decision or outcome. So the first thing that I want to talk about relating to that is that suspense is a feeling. It is an emotion. And again, I think lots of people get suspense and tension kind of mixed up, but I see tension more as action and more as something active occurring in the novel to create tension, whereas suspense is not action. Suspense is quiet. Suspense is kind of this thing that bubbles under the surface that you can sometimes forget about, but it's always lingering there. So suspense happens in quiet moments. It's not the big fight scene. It's not the big climax. It's what kind of leads up to that. So if suspension is about emotion, then we can see this as kind of arising out of, like Merriam-Webster said, anxiety, or your reader's anxiety about what's going to happen. Maybe they're worried about something that's going to happen. They're fearful about what's going to happen. But in order to make your reader feel these things, first, they have to care about the character that this story is about. If I'm reading a book and I do not care at all about the character the book is about, then I'm not going to feel suspense, because I don't care if she catches the killer. I don't care if bad things happen to her. I don't care if she gets her want or her goal in the end, because I'm not connected to her. So the first step in really successful suspense is making readers care about your character. And again, I would like to make an entire video on this topic, especially on the topic of why readers don't care about your characters, because I have read a lot of books that I have not cared about the characters at all, and I have studied why that is and what makes me connect to a character. So if you want a whole video on it, let me know down below. But some brief things that you can kind of write down right now as you're watching this video is, number one, you need to give your character a very specific want. They need to have something that they're working toward. I cannot count the number of novels I have read where the character is just aimlessly wandering and they have no specific goal that they're trying to achieve. So you need to make sure that your hero has a want. In addition to that, there needs to be something standing in the way of what they want, and this is tension. This is conflict. So your character wants something, there's something standing in the way of that, and then the third one that's really important is stakes. And believe me, I have experience writing low stakes stories, and I have had to learn how to up the stakes of my stories to make them more important, to make them more impactful, to make people care more about the characters. So if you have a character with a really strong want, something really bad, really nasty standing in their way, and high stakes, then you are well on your way to making your readers care about your character, which is the first step in successfully writing suspense into your novel. The second thing that I think is really important in suspense is information, because your readers can't feel anxious or worried or scared if they don't have the information to make them feel that way. So I am going to tell you a very brief story in like 4 sentences in 2 different ways. Here we go. Number 1, a character had a long day at work. She goes grocery shopping after work, comes home to an empty house, makes herself some dinner, and crawls into bed. All right, there was the whole story. Now I'm going to tell it in a slightly different way with a little bit of extra information. Ready? A character had a long day at work. She has to go grocery shopping after work. She comes home, arms full of groceries, and she forgets to lock her door. She then proceeds to make dinner and crawl into bed. Now this is the exact same story, except one of them has a little bit more information, and that little bit of information can provide suspense. The character forgot to lock the door because her arms were full of groceries. And when a reader reads that on the page, you are making a promise to them. If you are telling them, Jenny walked into the room and into the house and her arms were so full that she forgot to lock the front door. If you tell the reader that, that is making a promise to them, and making promises is another big aspect of suspense. I tell my reader that front door is left unlocked, then something had better come of that. The bad guy better walk through that door, the monster better walk through that door. Something had better come from that door being unlocked, because if you leave that door unlocked and nothing happens, then you have made a promise to your readers and then failed to keep that promise. And I see this happening in a lot of books, especially with new writers who haven't quite learned how to leave those, like that gingerbread trail. They haven't learned how to use those breadcrumbs successfully, so they might start leaving them and then just forget to finish it off. It's the same kind of idea of, if there is a gun in a scene, the gun had better go off. You know, it's not just sitting there to be a prop, it needs to be used. And suspense is dependent on that. It's dependent on the small details and bits of information that you're giving your readers that promise something. And from there, you have to make sure that you keep your promise and you see it all the way through to the end. And with suspense, that doesn't mean that it has to be immediately in that scene. With the example I gave you, that door being unlocked, that is a kind of short period of suspense, because this character is ultimately going to leave the house again and realize, oh, the door was unlocked. So that promise will need to be kept pretty damn quick after that happens, probably that night when she crawls into bed and her door is unlocked. Depending on the story you're telling and the types of suspense that you're trying to weave into your narrative, there can be larger promises that really stretch out potentially all the way to the climax of your novel. For example, maybe there's a bomb that's going to go off and your character has 2 hours to defuse the bomb and fix the problem. Or, somebody has been kidnapped and you get 48 hours to try to save this character, or something really bad is going to happen. So there are different timelines and time frames that you can use to play with suspense, depending on the promise that you are trying to keep to your reader. And then the last thing that I want to say about suspense that I kind of mentioned briefly at the beginning is, again, that suspense happens in quiet moments. And I think this is where people get confused with tension and suspense. Please stay tuned for, the Saturday videos that people will be putting out about tension specifically. But suspense, like in the example I gave you, happens in the quiet moments. The character forgot to lock the door and then she went on her way, and the story moves forward with her making dinner and crawling into bed. So that wasn't a big action scene, that wasn't something exploding or, the door being busted down. It was a very quiet moment, and it was the detail that lifted the suspense for you and kind of brought that into play. By missing that small detail, there immediately would have been no suspense. If you know that the door is unlocked, you are expecting somebody to come through it, versus you never even said anything about the door being unlocked and then somebody comes into the house. Exact same story, different levels of emotion and different levels of connection between the character and the reader. And I think that's something that suspense does really well, is it draws the reader into your story. They care about what happens to the characters. Their heart is racing. They're feeling worry and fear and anxiety for the character because they care about them. And that is going to really connect your reader to the story that you're telling, and ultimately allow you to tell a better, fuller, and more gripping story at the end. So those are my few tips for suspense. I obviously am not somebody who writes in the thriller or suspense genre. This is just what I have learned over the years. I am sure there are going to be many other wonderful videos on the topic of suspense. You can probably learn a lot more from all of those videos. Again, I will be linking Robert's channel down below. Robert, thank you for inviting me to participate. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys learned a little bit about suspense in today's video. All right, that is all I have for you. I will have a video out this Friday about ARC readers. So if you guys are interested in ARC reading Pistol Daisy and being a reviewer for me, then please make sure that you are staying tuned for Friday's video. I'm very excited. It'll be my first time with ARC readers, so it's new, it's outside of my comfort zone, but you have to step outside of your comfort zone to grow, so I'm excited about that. Also, if you are looking for a content editor, copy editor, or proofreader, I'm your gal. I do offer all of these services via my publishing house, Enchanted Ink Publishing. You can visit enchantedinkpublishing.com or wait until the end of the video and click the little link that shows up here. We are now also offering professional formatting of both ebook and print. So if you are looking for a formatter for your novel, again, enchantedinkpublishing.com and click the little formatting tab up at the very top. In terms of editing, I am booking into August right now. Summer is booking up very quickly, so if you are interested in working with me to polish up your novel and get it ready for publication, make sure you're reaching out sooner rather than later. All right, guys, that is all I have for you today on the topic of suspense. I hope you learned something. Let me know if you have any questions down below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!